All right. Serious time. All right. Welcome everybody to a new ShawnSetGO video. Today we're going to be talking about, I would say, the battle between the retail and classic side of World of Warcraft. These are kind of the things that are constantly at odds, in my opinion, but I think there's quite a few of us who exist in somewhere in the middle, where it's like you enjoy things about retail, you enjoy things about classic, but you can still miss the things about classic. But before I get to that, thank you guys for the support in the most recent video. We're up to now 900 subscribers. We're nearing 1,000 subscribers, but we're still at 95% unsubscribed. So if you watched the video before, you enjoy the videos, do like and subscribe. But I wanted to jump into the comments of my previous video first. It says, dude, you're fooling no one with that hair and beard dye job. Of all the comments I've gotten, I was like, does my hair, does this look dyed? If anything, I was worried that like I was getting too many gray hairs. But so I want you guys to let you know that this happens somewhere in the mark of when you have about like a few 100,000 watch hours. I think we hit 250,000 watch hours and viewers, and overall, like, I think this is what happens. You know, you get to this stage and then you just get some like hate watchers, and I'm just like, you know what, just hang out, sure, like have a good time. But yeah. anyways, continuing on with the video, the first post I wanted to mention was this one. It's your beard is like cut like a perfect angle. I guess I can see someone hating, but yeah, it's like, you know what? There's no way this is real. My beard doesn't grow in here. If that gives anyone any perspective. So the first post that came up, it says, I'm annoyed at how people talk about WoW Classic in YouTube videos and retrospectives. Whenever channels that aren't about WoW discuss WoW's history, they always talk about how Classic WoW was the greatest thing of all time. The people wanted it. It was said they didn't want it. They gave it to them, and it was a masterpiece. 10 out of 10, the best WoW ever made, brought WoW back. Everyone played it. Everyone loved it. Nothing wrong ever and ever. Retail sucks for babies. Classic is for real gamers. Now, I want to correct this to a degree. While Classic was definitely something that we wanted, we all remember the classic BlizzCon that says you think you do, but you don't. But when Classic came out, and as updates were coming out for Classic, we weren't 100% vibing with it. Any changes, this is why the meme no changes that came about, because people were upset with the changes. But they were for the better. Some changes were necessary. Now, can we have changes that would have changed, say, Paladins and made Ret Paladins a decent DPS in Classic WoW? No, I'm glad that they kept it in Season of Discovery. I think some things needed to stay the way they were, because you kind of shift the dynamic too much, because Ret was good in PvP. It was insane in PvP back in Classic. And so not everything was perfect is the main thing I want to stress with this point. So it says, where from my perspective, WoW Classic was something that most people played for exactly 1 month before the reality of it settled in. New players who never played Classic tried it, thought it was interesting, got bored really quickly and left. The old returning players were horrified at how trivially easy it was, and now that they've decent internet and aren't playing an MMO for the first time. Not true as well. I think this is way off the point. A lot of people played WoW WoW Classic because it was a part of WoW that you likely missed if you weren't part of the initial wave. Back in 2004, I didn't know what PC gaming was. At most, I knew what PlayStation was and Xbox was, later down the line. But PC gaming wasn't on my radar until about 2008, 2009. So for me and a lot of people, Classic WoW was the experience that we never had. And it wasn't about difficulty. It's never been about difficulty. WoW Classic stole things from other games. It stole from EverQuest. We all know this. They stole from EverQuest, but it wasn't about the challenge. Yes, we all sucked at WoW then. We all suck at WoW now. But back then, it had something more substantial. It had something worth meaning, and a lot of it had to do with your leveling experience. People bonded over the leveling experience, and it was mainly because that's where you spend the majority of your time. It wasn't that the leveling experience was a challenge, it's just that it took so much time and you had so little resources that it became so arduous. It is still a long, drawn out time. Despite there being quick ways to level it up and speed level, it's not about the difficulty. It was about the time spent and bonding over a mutual grind at the time. And after all, the old players blazed through the content at a record pace. They went through speedrunning the entire game, making it incredibly hostile to new players, to the point people were being kicked out of an easy piss dungeons if they didn't have the most optimal class, race, armor, weapons, trinkets, buffs, and talents of all time. I will say, to a degree, this is true. At a certain point, Classic was figured out, and it was figured out pretty much the first time Classic was done. Now that we're doing Classic again with new hardcore servers, people have it figured out. People have it mapped out. It has been mapped out for a long time. It is not retail where you can just be like, well, the small micro details between what your skill and class is and mine are so minor that the only place that you're going to notice really major differences is between the top and the bottom. Back then, there was a clear difference, and it is established what is good. There is not a whole lot of room for RP. In fact, there's not even room for hardcore play. World of Warcraft was never designed to be played hardcore. The reason why people put hardcore in the game, and they advocated for hardcore in the game, they wanted the add-on to become an actual thing, is because the game itself was figured out 100%. People knew exactly what the game was about, and that there's no avoiding that. Like it turns out, no, most players didn't actually want Classic, because for all that can be learned from it, for as interesting as it turns, it's actually really boring for the vast majority of people. So then make Hardcore Classic, which only turned away new players even more, or just who wasn't playing at space engineering levels of optimization. No one who's playing Classic is playing it because they want a new experience. It is not it at all. We are all fucking 30 years old, and we all just want to play something that we're used to, at least something that we remember, because we all have early onset dementia. Like, there's no point of us trying to try something new when we already have the thing that we like. Like, there's very little things that are new, that are exciting anymore, because true innovation doesn't exist anymore in video games. It's just a matter of creating a safe space and sort of like an interesting zone for you to feel comfortable. And that's not what we want as gamers. We were born amongst a time when internet didn't exist, and we saw it come to fruition, and we kind of just exist where we most liked it. And so moving on to this next post, it says, literally every conversation between characters in the War Within is a mutual affirmation hug fest. Don't get me wrong, I think this kind of thing should be done more in real life, and we should be conscious of others' well-being and take efforts to make people feel more comfortable and cared for. It's just not good for fictional drama, especially when it's unearned, and moreover, when it's the exclusive tone. So what this is kind of saying is, often when you approach these characters, you want to learn more about what's going on, because it's like, I'm just kind of in this story all of a sudden. And when you ask, it's like you get all these unasked for emotions and feelings, but not really any lore or anything interesting. It's like, by the way, I really struggled to put on my shirt today. Like, okay. It's like seeing one of those signs that says, but first coffee, or like, or live, laugh, love, you know. It's just like, It's the live, laugh, love of WoW questing, and that's all it feels like. It just feels like we're going through a big coffee sesh at Starbucks. that's what WoW feels like as a lore experience. Every single time I see stay a while and listen, I know that inevitably, without exception, it's going to be two characters saying variations of "I see you, I hear you, Jake Sully. Your pain is valid, but you can do it because I believe in you." I'm not saying I don't want to see this ever, but I want it to count, and I want it to not be the only thing ever. And this has been the main thing I stressed when I was talking about the World of Warcraft experience from the lore perspective. It felt like over and over again, we were approaching situations where they were just killing off the guys, and then the women who were just there in the room at the time take their place, and they just go like, "I deserve this." And it's just like, well, was there any other candidates? Like, I mean, like it just seems very undeserved. It seems very unearned. And then all of a sudden we just put people, and we just go, "Oh, by the way, you're diverse. You have this going on in your life. You have these emotions," but you don't really establish any sort of lore or interest there. There's nothing people want to RP based off of unless they identify with the exact thing that you're saying this character now is. So it was touching in Battlestar Galactica's episode Hand of God when Commander, I need to watch Battlestar Galactica. That's one of those things I've never gave a shot. When Commander Adama and his son finally had a reconciliation, and after spending so much time in a fraught relationship, it meant something for them to finally arrive at that place. And the fact that this deepened the bond didn't come easily raised the stakes for future storylines when they would be forced by circumstances into opposite sides of a conflict. So basically this coming together, but also the separation. So not just like a good and evil, but also transitional evil, like becoming evil over time. So that there is a bit of gradation that you don't really see that in WoW right now. Just once, for the sake of drama and geopolitical wartime story, I want one character to say, "Man, Illyria, you really fucked up. You got people killed, and I can't entrust you with your responsibilities anymore. So get out of my sight before I throw you in a brig for disobeying orders. If you want." After that, I'd be fine with another character come up with like Illyria, like, "Damn, he went too hard on you. It wasn't even your fault." And this is what I think people were hoping for way back when Sylvanas was going through. We're like, right, all right, where she's gonna figure it out. And there's gonna be some secret thing that she had intended all along, and then she's gonna. It was for the good for everybody. They just didn't know it. Nope. Turns out she was just bamboozled. She's like, silly, stupid. I don't know. I thought I was more powerful. And then Shadowlands was just over. It was just over. And so the whole meaning behind Anduin and him, like basically facing his own trauma and PTSD felt meaningless because Shadowlands just had lost the essence of its main story. And then leading into Dragonflight, it was like, wow, this is serious. This is going to be a serious storyline. So much lore, so much is at stake here that we didn't even realize. And then all they did with War Within is they washed, rinse, repeat. They copy pasted the story. They went, "Oh, by the way, there's another world that you didn't know of, that you didn't realize also exists, and it's here. But don't worry about saving it. Just please do some chores for me if you don't mind. But while you're doing it, I'm going to tell you about how hard my life has been, and how people didn't trust in me because I was a woman, or didn't trust in me because the people in power didn't think that I was cut out for it. But I promise I got this." And it just felt very kumbaya and not very like it's well earned. And so a lot of times these situations, I don't want it to make it seem like I'm just shitting on these situations for the sake of shitting on these situations. I want it to be clear that you could make these exact same stories be meaningful and have impact. It's just the way that it's done is done so slapdash. It just and it's done constantly to where it feels like you just feel exhausted. You're just kind of overdone. And it's just it just kind of wears you out. And so this is the first comment. It says, because everything you asked for already happened. Turalian tore into his wife for taking into the void. Thrall lost a huge part of himself when he gave into the rage of force the elements to kill Garrosh. Then Sourfang told him to stop being a baby and get back into the fight. Anduin was so traumatized by his actions when he dominated, he lost his ability to use light. Thrall told him that he couldn't just run away from his problems. Bronzebeards has been about 20 years of stories regarding their conflicts. Most of these stories are in reconciliation stage of relationships and conflict. They're all accumulating here. Oh my gosh, there's so much big words. I'm struggling here. So I agree with this to a certain degree. I get what people are saying whenever they say, well, these things kind of already happened. There's a lot of these storylines that you're asking for that kind of have been happening in time, like over time. But at the same time, whenever we create new stories, all we do is we bring those same people from those old stories to carry the decent parts of the stories. And anytime they're removed from the story, it doesn't hold weight. So it's like if you're going to say these old stories that have existed before in previous versions of WoW have already been made and we can't make those again, then why do you constantly use them to carry your stories to have some degree of weight, but you can't seem to launch off any new character's story to have any degree of meaning? Now, I believe there's an exception to this. I think that Xal'atath has been done to a certain degree to where the buildup does feel meaningful. But anything that's been alongside that has felt very weak and very subpar. The fact that we have Khadgar in parts of the story and they are some of the weakest bits that he's ever been in Warcraft lore is just sad. And so it just feels like constantly we're not using these characters in a proper way or giving them credit where credit is due. Instead, we're using them to just trash them because we know that in the end, people who like these characters are still going to like these characters. Because if you like Thrall, if you like Anduin as a character, you're going to like them no matter what. So it's like, let's do anything with them, even if it's really bad and it's not really solid, just for the sake of, because no matter what happens, people are going to like these characters no matter what. But no character has been implemented since where it's like, oh yeah, this is meaningful. This is important. The only thing we've gotten out of this expansion is one decent character. And that's fucking sad. So all I'm saying is, looking at this and you're comparing these two posts, and why I did these two posts is because the reason why people who make classic WoW videos and these retrospectives look back instead of forward is because there's nothing to look forward to. And as much as you can put out roadmaps, you can put out game mechanics, and you can put out financial marketing systems that are going to pay off to pay for certain releases that are going to come out. So people stop saying that, oh yeah, they're going to increase the World of Warcraft membership expansion if you don't pay for this. What you need to do, this is going to be my wild out of pocket opinion, drop the past. Stop trying to use characters from the past to make the current story meaningful. We need to move on. I hope they never mention Sylvanas again, because if they brought her back, it would be the dumbest thing. It would just make it worse. Just let these characters move on. Let it move on. All it's doing is it's dredging up that version, this idea that people have of what they like about these characters, and it makes us just not enjoy them anymore. Stop using characters of the past, create characters in the future that actually have, like, they actually can do something. They can actually fight, and they're more than just their emotions and their feelings. Because that's been the most defining thing of this expansion, that like, oh, like, by the way, did you know that this character feels sad sometimes? And you're just like, oh my gosh, I don't care. I don't care. So I don't want this to be too much of a classic Andy take. I want this to be a discussion moving forward. So where do you stand? where do you think is how they need to move forward? Do you feel like it's fine the way it is? Do you feel like it's perfect the way it is? Just let me know in the comments. Of course, if you haven't joined our Discord yet, we are trying to make groups together. We're also trying to make content together. You can share content in our Discord channel. It's called the Daily Dad. You can share stuff there and recommendations there. I'll make videos based off the content you guys recommend. But of course, if you enjoyed this video, give it a like, subscribe to the page. We're nearing 1,000 subscribers, and I know we can get it before the holidays. That's my goal anyways. But until next time, I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.